What's up, YouTube? I'm here to do my prediction video for UFC 260. Sorry this video is coming so late. I was busy with some stuff earlier. Let's start at the bottom. The first fight is Mark Andre versus Abir Zaitar or Abu Zaitar. Um, to me, the biggest thing for this fight, I think Abu just has the better overall wrestling game. I think both these guys are technical kickboxers, but I think Abu, condition wise, they're about even, but I think Abu can keep Andre against the fence or on the ground the whole fight. I think that neither guy is the greatest knockout fighter. They're more technique and volume over anything. And because of that, I'm just leaning towards the stronger wrestler, who I think is Abu. And I think because he's the stronger wrestler, I think he wins this fight by decision. Next is Shane Young versus Omar Morales. And I think this is just going to be a really close back and forth kickboxing match. I'm leaning slightly towards Shane. I think the biggest thing is Omar, I don't know. I don't think he makes the healthiest weight cuts. I think that he tends to get tired later in fights, and I don't think Shane Young's going to get tired. I think he also struggles a little bit when guys put the pace on him when he makes these big weight cuts, because he's fought at 55 and 45, and since this fight is at 45, that's why I'm leaning towards Shane Young. Unless something's changed drastically in his camp and how he diets, I'm always going to lean towards the more conditioned fighter when he's fighting them, and I think that is Shane Young. I do think Omar's probably the slightly better fighter overall, but like I said, I think these weight cuts matter. You know what I mean? If they fuck him over in the later parts of the fight, I think that's what's going to happen. I think this is going to be a kickboxing fight, but I think by the third, if Omar starts to slow down, I think Shane's going to take over and probably win by either TKO or submission in the third. Next is, God, I can't say this guy's name. Modestes versus Michael. I can't say his last name either. Basically, these are two good light heavyweight kickboxers. I just think Michael's the much better kickboxer. I think Michael's only problem has been when he fights really good grapplers, and Modestes is basically just a kickboxer himself, but I don't think he's an overwhelmingly amazing kickboxer. I feel like his two fights in the UFC, his first fight was super close back and forth, and then he caught the guy at the end of the first round, and then his second fight, he basically just got outstruck and knocked out. I think Michael, like I said, is probably the better overall striker. I also think he hits a lot harder, and because of that, I think Michael's eventually going to knock out most Modestes. Next is Jared Gordon versus Bakara. I can't say his first name, but it's Nurmagomedov, the one that fights at welterweight. To me, Jared Gordon's a good kickboxer, but I think Nurmagomedov's just a much better kickboxer. I mean, Nurmagomedov's been caught every now and then, but other than him getting caught in a crazy submission, on the feet kickboxing, I've only ever seen him kind of look bad one time, and that's when he got caught and submitted. Other than that, I think his technique on the feet is really amazing. He's super good at outpointing people. And I think this fight's going to be like Jared's last fight when he fought Nico Price, or not Nico Price, but Alan Jouban. I think it's going to be a fun back and forth fight, but I think Nurmagomedov just outpoints him all 3 rounds and wins a solid 30-27 decision. Next is Alonzo Menafield versus Fabio. I can't say his last name. I think Fabio's a good wrestler submission guy, but I think that plays heavily into Alonzo's favor. I think Alonzo, even when he fought Devin Clark, Devin Clark really couldn't take him down, and even when he did take him down, he really couldn't hold him down. And I think Devin Clark's a much better wrestler than Fabio. I think that Fabio, like I said, is really just a takedown submission guy. I think Alonzo's the much better striker, and I think his takedown defense is just too good. I think Alonzo is going to eventually catch Fabio and win by knockout, probably in the first or second round. Next is Jamie Mullarkey versus Khama Worthy, and this is my biggest fear. I do think Khama Worthy is probably a slightly better fighter overall, but he just got knocked out. It feels like it was just last month. I don't know how long it was, but it wasn't that long ago. And almost all of his losses are basically knockout losses. It's he's going up against a guy who I don't think he's that much better of a striker than. I think, in all honesty, Khama Worthy's advantages are just he's a little faster and he hits a little bit harder. But I think technique-wise, Jamie's either just as good as him, if not better. And like I said, the difference between these two is Khama Worthy's coming off a knockout loss that just happened not that long ago. And because of that, I feel like this is just going to be a close striking fight. But once again, one of them's coming off a very recent knockout loss, and that's why I'm leaning towards Jamie. I think this fight stays on the feet. I think it's a close kickboxing match. And I just think it's more likely that Jamie's going to land something. It doesn't even have to be something amazing. I think as soon as he lands something halfway decent, he's probably going to rock Khama and knock him out. And because of that, I'm leaning towards Jamie Mullarkey to win by TKO in the first or second round. Next is Gillian Robertson versus Miranda Maverick. And to me, like, I get Miranda Maverick having a lot of hype, but I think she has a little bit too much hype. I think Gillian Robinson, I know she lost her last fight kind of bad, but I think she was fighting someone who's a really good black belt and a really strong wrestler. I think Miranda has good wrestling and decent jiu-jitsu overall, but she doesn't have the same type of, like, power physique that that Brazilian chick that Gillian just fought did. Her physique is more like Gillian's, where it's like a strong wrestler jiu-jitsu base. And to me, I do think Gillian Robinson's the stronger jiu-jitsu fighter. Maverick's probably the stronger wrestler, but neither one of these chicks are amazing strikers. And I think when it's on the ground, I do think Robinson's the better overall grappler, and I do think she's going to eventually wind up on top and winning by submission. I think Miranda will be winning early, and I think eventually when Robinson catches a sweep or an armbar is when she's going to win. So I think Robinson's going to win by either first or second round submission. Next is Sean O'Malley versus Thomas Almeida, and Thomas Almeida, I know he's had a few injuries, but he does not fight the same way he used to fight. He fights this very low-pace kickboxing match, and there's a reason why he hasn't won a fight in a while, and if he has, it hasn't been against anyone of relevance. You know, he keeps on just kind of getting outstruck and knocked out. I think that the same thing's going to happen in this fight. I think O'Malley's faster, I think his volume's better, and I think his accuracy is better. I think the only way Thomas Almeida could win this fight is if he fights him how he used to fight and just kind of keeps going at him to throw off his timing. But he's not going to fight like that. He's going to fight like how he's been fighting, which is this slow kickboxing style. And I think if he's just slowly walking towards O'Malley, O'Malley's just going to pick him apart because he's way faster. And I think he just uses his range really well. And because of that, I think O'Malley's going to win by first or second round knockout. I think eventually he finds that big shot and TKOs Almeida. Next is Tyron Woodley versus Vicente Luque, and to me, the biggest thing in this fight is Tyron Woodley. Like, this is the thing. People think Tyron Woodley suddenly got shittier. I've never thought Tyron Woodley was that good, personally. I feel like a lot of his fights are the same. It's just he was fighting people that he matched up stylistically well with. Other than Robbie Lawler, you know, that was good on his part. You know, he definitely beat him. Almost every other person he fought, it was like Damian Maia, who has no striking and would never take him down. You know, Stephen Thompson, who kind of needs someone to come at him to get off to a certain degree, and Tyron Woodley, who does nothing. It works out perfectly for him because they basically just kind of stand there and look at each other. And then Darren Till, who couldn't make the weight and looked like he was dying. You know, all of his title fights, I'm not trying to, like, say it wasn't impressive, but I think a lot of his fights just worked out in his favor. And now you've seen his last 3 fights. He's fighting guys that kind of just do what I always thought people should have done, which is push him against the fence. He's basically standing against the fence anyway. And he doesn't throw high volume, and he doesn't try to work to get off the fence. And I think that's what's going to happen in this fight. I think that Tyron Woodley puts himself against the fence. You basically just have to pin him there, and then you can win. He's doing half the work for you because he doesn't do a lot to get away from where he's already at. I mean, it's weird to me because I remember Jake Shields and Rory McDonald did that, and then no one did it for a long time. Like, I felt like the blueprint was always there and people just weren't doing it. Now people are doing it again. Yeah. Yeah, and I just think that, you know, Luque is the overall better fighter at this point. I think his striking volume is much higher. I think his ability to pin Woodley against the fence, I think, is just about as good as anybody else at this point. I know that those guys are better wrestlers, the last 3 guys that Woodley fought, but I don't think Luque sucks at wrestling. I think that if he needs to pin him against the fence, he can do it. And because of that, I'm leaning towards Luque to win by decision. And finally, we have the main event, Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. And this is the thing. This fight is going to go one of 2 ways, and everyone already knows it. Ngannou's going to knock him out in the first round, or Stipe is going to win a very clear-cut decision, maybe finish him late. You know, I mean, like, it's really a 50-50 fight in that sense, because it's like, this is one of those fights that I would never bet on, because it's like, do you really think Ngannou's going to knock him out? Maybe. Like, I think that every Ngannou fight, I personally do not like betting on guys like Ngannou. Like, I do not like the rumbles and guys like that. I know a lot of people are big fans of that shit, but I am not a fan of that because to me it's like they don't carry that power the whole fight. They carry it for about a round. And then as soon as that round's over, you pretty much know what's going to happen from there on out. They're not going to keep the same power and speed. And this is the thing. I still think Stipe has a huge wrestling advantage. I don't care where Ngannou's training. He can train with great. We see that all the time. These guys that train with great fighters and their wrestling isn't better. Because of that, I think once again, unless Ngannou catches him right off the bat, I think Stipe wins this fight all day. I think he's just a much better fighter. I think his boxing's better. I think his wrestling's better. I think Ngannou's strengths are just he's faster with his punches and he hits harder for the first round. And as long as Stipe avoids that, he wins this fight 9 times out of 10. It's just that first round. And I'm just leaning towards Stipe. I think he grinds him out against the fence, gets takedowns here and there, and just wins a dominant decision like last time. I think it's just like the first fight. I think it's a tough first round, and then 4 straight rounds of solid dominance for Stipe. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.